Hey folks, this is Colin Richards, president and founder of Lord & Richards, and in this segment of the Lord & Richards show, we're going to be talking about ways that the current convergence of what I'm going to call cataclysmic negative events is affecting our economy, creating a new paradigm, but also creating an opportunity for low-risk investors. So that's a powerful combination of words there. And I want to remind you here at Lord & Richards, we're talking to people every single day, just like you, who are looking for a way, a path to cut through all of this negativity and find really what their economic bubble might involve, how to create insulation against this world that is reacting so negatively to bad government policies, wars, and of course now we're experiencing inflation and high interest rates. Recently, a bunch of CEOs were interviewed and they're talking about serious problems being on the horizon. And I don't think it takes really great financial mind to agree with Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, when he said recently a hurricane is out there. You know, recently I flew to Florida to spend time with my father and my family, and there was literally a tropical storm forming out in the Gulf that was timed to hit our exact landing site, our airport, right about the time we were scheduled to arrive. And of course, we're praying, you know, God, please help us to be able to get down there, visit family, get there safely, and get back. And we were very blessed that, you know, the storm passed through. It really didn't develop the way they thought it would, and it was gone, and there were just some big puddles left by the time we landed. But this time, the hurricane is for real, okay? This isn't just some figment of anybody's imagination. Jamie Dimon says it's down the road, and it's coming our way. John Waldron is the president of Goldman Sachs, and he has said recently in his interview that we have overlapping shocks to our system going on right now, and they're unprecedented. Bill Demchak even said a recession, in his mind, is unavoidable. And of course, this is challenging when you've got a recession at the same time that you got inflation, right? We begin to see problems. And, you know, if we begin to see layoffs, if we begin to see wages come back down because companies are struggling, that's going to be a big challenge. There was one gentleman at Morgan Stanley named Ted Pick who really is in line to assume a position of top leadership. And he really thoughtfully gave his comments, okay, a little less off the cuff, a little less general, and gave us a little bit more information in a recent article put out by CNBC. And he said this, he said, we're entering an economic paradigm shift. Okay, now that terminology can be overused. I understand that. But in this case, he's not joking and he's not exaggerating. An economic paradigm shift. Here's some things we got to think about. We've had our first pandemic in 100 years, right? I mean, we managed to avoid these things. We've had them isolated. We've had epidemics, but this is our first global event, truly global pandemic in 100 years. How about this? Our first invasion has taken place in Europe in 75 years, right? Since World War II, we have seen relative stability over there in Europe, and now we're seeing absolute instability as Russia invades Ukraine. How about this one? We're experiencing right now, with inflation approaching 9%, our first real inflation bubble in 40 years. 40 years, 4 decades without any significant inflation. We've always referred back to, you know, the late 70s, early 80s. Well, guess what? We're here again. We're here again. And there are opportunities. I've often said, you know, if I had been a little bit older back then, I would have picked up some treasury bonds and gotten my 15 to 18% with the government backing, right? I don't know if we're going to see that, but I tell you what, there is an opportunity for low-risk investors. We've got two forces going on now, according to Ted Pick. He says we got fire and we got ice. You say, well, what does that mean? Fire is inflation, right? Heating things up, raising the prices. People are scrambling with the money that flooded into the system during the pandemic. And because of the massive stimulus, the quantitative easing, all of this has poured money into the system that people are just eager to unload. People are dumping into airplanes, trying to have the vacations that they had to skip during the pandemic. People are going after cars that they put off purchases because of a shortage of inventory. Well, guess what? Inventory is even shorter now. So our first real inflation bubble in 40 years. How about this? The Fed just increased interest rates by 0.75%. We haven't seen that in 28 years, almost 3 decades. So things are going on right now. We have overlapping shocks to our system. We have unbelievable history-making events occurring before our eyes, and we should not be complacent. Now, what I'm not saying is panic, right? Run for the hill, stick your head in the sand, or any of that. We have a new normal, okay? That was first coined by Bill Gross, who was the head of the world's largest bond fund at the time, and he says, we've got a new normal back in 2008. Well, we've had 15 years post-2008 of that new normal. And Pick calls it, maybe a little bit more thoughtfully, a financial repression, pointing to the fact that the Fed has been repressing interest rates. We've even had negative interest rates, right, to try to stimulate the economy, keep things going for the last 15 years. So what have we gotten as a result? Well, corporations and people, individuals, have been borrowing left and right, okay? We've had cheap corporate debt, and even unprofitable companies, not good, so-so companies that don't deserve to exist, have stayed afloat because of readily available cash. Recently, venture capitalist firms have been starting to tell their startups, hey, look, you guys, we're ballooning because of money. It was quick and easy. Now what we need to do is you guys just need to hoard cash. So that's what they're telling their startups. They're telling them, maybe a 2-year, what they call runway, right? Hold that much cash back because it's gonna get ugly. We had all during this 15 years, we had regular injections of money into the system, such as quantitative easing. That's the Fed's bond buying program. It put money into the system. It penalized savers and it rewarded leverage. All of these policies resulted in an environment where you really couldn't get any yield on safe assets, right? Treasuries were artificially low. There was nothing good out there that was safe. And so it forced you to go take more risk. Well, guess what? That party is over. The debt guys are out of luck. Interest rates are going to be soaring. And we're going to continue to see people backing away from things like home purchases that involve getting debt. We're seeing the housing market cool off. We're seeing companies backing away from borrowing money, and they're starting to hoard cash. All of this on purpose, of course. The Fed knows this is going to happen when they raise rates, and they're trying to cool down inflation. So on the borrowing side, everybody's going to be affected negatively. Credit card borrowers. Okay, in our previous segment, we said if you got credit card debt, get out of credit card debt. Those rates are going to soar. Home buyers are going to be impacted because of the new high rates, now over 6%. Startups are going to be impacted. You're going to see fewer, and you're going to see the weaker ones folding right and left. That's already happening in the crypto universe, where that whole ethereal world from which we got the word Ethereum, that world that's based on nothing but goodwill, what Bill Gates recently referred to as just kind of a whole baseless investment system, that's collapsing. We're going to see all these kinds of losers now finally have to pay the piper, okay? And in addition, real cost of capital is going to reveal who those true winners and losers are, because the losers aren't going to be able to afford it. On the savings side, however, I have a much more positive message, okay? If you're looking for an alternative to the wild ride of just sticking your money in the market, watching it rise and fall, taking the hit when the market crashes, enjoying the exuberant ride when the roller coaster's flying high, then I'm going to recommend to you take a look at building a plan that contains some safe assets. But safe assets right now are really doing well. Because interest rates are going up, we're seeing the opportunity for people who are risk averse to once again get in there and enjoy real yield. Even if you stick your money in a savings account, those are starting to approach 1%. On a bigger scale, within your investment portfolio, longer-term bonds and what we'll talk about here in a moment, bond substitutes are yielding very nicely right now. And so it's a great opportunity. And of course, we're talking to folks every single day who are saying, Colin, what do we need to do? Well, first, you need a plan. for financial independence. And then when we invest, we've got to support that plan, right? The purpose of money dictates where we put it. So we're going to put money where it's going to do exactly what your goals need, not just, hey, we got a hot stock tip. And so in our next segment, I encourage you to tune in. We're going to talk about how you can profit from this paradigm shift, and as a low-risk investor, how you can take advantage about what's going on in the world right now, even with the high interest rates and inflation that we're experiencing.